David.
Yes, Dave.
What was your favorite food as a kid?
Chicken soup. And what about yourself? Don't make that face. Just answer the question.
Chocolate chip cookies.
All right. Well, that's hard to beat. But with that, we can welcome everybody to Stupid Gen X Trick, the show for people who used to be cool, featuring us, two guys named Dave and David, who've been around for a while, as you can tell by looking at us, who got to be friends way back in 1990s land when we somehow found ourselves working for the President of the United States, but who mostly want to forget about politics for an hour and talk about things like music and movies and the rest of the culture that shaped who our generation is today.
Indeed, and this is our 11th episode, Food, Glorious Food. We're going to be talking about, yes, yum. It's certainly something many love, certainly we do, and a piece of the culture that really has changed quite a bit from the Gen X childhood years until today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be doing that with author Jeff Gordinier, who has written books on both food and Gen X, among many other things that he does with a typewriter, which I'm guessing he does not use a typewriter, which was another episode. But he is just the man for the job here.
Sounds like it. I'm excited to meet him. And so the run of the show will be us kicking this around ourselves, as we always do in our opening section, go to break, and then the middle segment, which is the interview with him, and we'll be getting all of his insights and a little bit of his experiences.
And then what happens after that, Dave?
Well, there are things called wormholes, and this week, yes, wormholes. This week we are debuting the Supermassive track, Wormholes, that is all of 4 seconds long and glorious in every way. And that
really
is. It is. And that is the section where we come up with some interesting thing to us that we've perhaps spent a little too much time diving into on our phones or other devices. And yeah, it's going to be good. I just feel it.
And then at the very end of the show, we're going to have an announcement about our future content. And at some point during the show, I am going to try and work the word gumption into the conversation.
Wow, that is the great aspiration there, and I don't know why, but let's do that. Okay, so back to our topic. We were talking about our favorite childhood foods. So let's compare the typical Selden House meal with what it's like now in the current Selden House.
Yeah, well, and the one that I think really stands out for like the difference between, how things were and how things are, and I guess probably also goes a little bit to another previous episode about parenting, was breakfast, right? That we would eat for breakfast, the kids. My parents didn't eat this, but we'd eat cereal every morning. And of course, there was a sugar bowl that was just always on the table, as I think was pretty normal in those days. And you dump a couple of teaspoons of sugar onto whatever cereal you were eating. Now, my mother wouldn't buy the sugary cereals, right? So we had cornflakes or Cheerios or whatever, but they were perfectly fine with us loading whatever much, table sugar onto that as we wanted to. And then, of course, washing it all down with a cup of hot chocolate. And I can't imagine anybody allowing their kids to do that today. And I don't remember being like super wired up going to school, but we must have been.
It's funny. You transported me to my childhood because your description of breakfast there inspired the same response I had over and over when food conversations at Glencairn School, my elementary school, turned to, what we were having and eating at home, because what almost always happened was I'd be like, oh, I want to sleep over. Can I sleep over at your house? Because our house, I hated the food. My friends all hated the food. The food would please a foodie, but it did not please a kid. My mom was a big fan of French cooking. So we would have, like coq au vin and, roast beef and things that were fancy. But I wanted, as a kid, I wanted pizza and hamburgers, and we never had any of that. Except when my mom was out of town and my dad and I would sneak out for junk food and bring it home and have pizza for breakfast. Pizza for breakfast was really my favorite breakfast back then. But we had a lot of eggs. I didn't get to the pizza for breakfast thing till college, but it's hard to beat. Yes, it is a beautiful thing. But also, let's get back to this chicken soup.
Yeah,
that's what you eat when you're sick. What do you? How did that turn into a highlight? Were you sick your entire childhood?
In some ways, I'm sure I was, but no, we had. Jewish family. We had Friday night dinner, and we always had chicken soup. Really, I think all year round. Although maybe it was just in the winter. And my mother made very good chicken soup, and then once a month or so, we would go to my grandmother's house for dinner, and she would make even better chicken soup. And I just always loved it. So there you go.
Man, well, chocolate chip cookies, that seems like
I also make very good chicken soup, by the way. I feel like I need to point out. But
yeah. Well, I was such a fan of chocolate chip cookies that I would eat them. My mom, who was like into health food long before it became a thing, portion control, all those things that became common in the 90s and 2000s, my mom was into in the 70s, which just caused embarrassment at restaurants mainly, and friends who didn't want to sleep over. But also, I would get, when the chocolate chip cookies were there, then I would eat them. I'd eat my 3 portion control chocolate chip cookies at dessert, but then I try to eat them afterwards too. And
were they store-bought cookies or
no, homemade Toll House, straight up Toll House chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
And and then I'd start eating them after my parents had disappeared from the kitchen. I'd sneak in there and eat some more, and then eat some more. And then my mom started putting a piece of paper with a cookie count on top of the cookie.
Oh my goodness.
The cookies to call me out. And so it would say like 12, and there'd be 12 cookies.
Did you consider calling Child Protective Services at that point? That seems like it would have been an appropriate response.
I kind of, no, I didn't. I thought about maybe trying to get it adopted by one of my friends' families.
Right.
Like one of our past guests, Mark Richardson, whose mom would serve Burger King, which was way better, and her own food that was great. But yeah, so then I started, once she went to the count, then I started nibbling the edges, trying to get the parts that had the chips in them, so the cookies would shrink, but the count would be the same. And I had to make it look like it was like a genuine break.
You were gaming the numbers.
I was a sly little bastard. Yes.
There you go. But, as much as there's been an evolution in what people eat at home, and there clearly has been, I feel like an even bigger change maybe in restaurants, right? And first of all, I think my sense is people eat out much more than they used to generally. Certainly much more than my family or most of my friends' families ever did as kids. But that, restaurants, like nice restaurants, upscale restaurants, used to be all kind of the same. It seems in recollection, right? That you had steak and, sort of vaguely Frenchified things, or you would have, certainly growing up in the New York area, lots of Italian restaurants, but I think those were everywhere. And, any kind of Asian cuisine, certainly, well, it was only Chinese food, and that was very that was cheap and different. There's just so much more variety.
It just wasn't so gourmet. Like, I feel like it wasn't, there are certainly more cuisines now, many more, but I think what's really changed is the variety of foods and some other factors, but, that's also a perfect thing for us to ask our guests about instead of us winging it here. But the concept of being a foodie and caring and knowing about what you're eating and drinking has certainly gone from being something nobody talked about, and now it's become mainstream. And with the Food Network and the celebrity chefs and all of that. So,
and this does seem like now the right moment to introduce our guest, who we'll be bringing on in a second, Jeff Gordinier. Jeff has been the food and drinks editor of Esquire. He was a staff writer for the New York Times food section, and he's written for literally a gazillion other publications as well. Not literally a gazillion, I guess, but he's the author of the highly acclaimed book, Hungry, Eating, Road Tripping, and Risking It All with the Greatest Chef in the World, which chronicles life with the Danish chef Rene Redzepi, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, about whom we will learn much more, including how to pronounce his name, after we take a break.
But first, let me remind you that you may be hungry for food, but the algorithms are hungry for you to like and respond to all of our content.
And your podcast feed is hungry for you to subscribe so that you get new episodes as soon as they're out.
And of course, we do invite anyone and everyone to do skywriting about our show, because that's just a little dream of mine.
And we should always aim to make Dave's dreams come true.
We'll be right back.
Why not la choy chow mein instead of spaghetti? Why not la choy chow mein instead of a sandwich? Why not la choy chow mein instead of a pot roast?
Chicken, beef, and tender shrimp. 3 tasty kinds of la choy chow mein. Start your la choy why not shelf today.
La choy makes Chinese food swing American. Why not?
Jeff, welcome. Thank you for coming on. And we're going to start you off with the question that we ask all of our guests that allows us to properly judge them as human beings, which is what was the first album that you ever bought for yourself?
Elton John, Greatest Hits at the Eastwood School Fair in Oyster Bay, Long Island, for 25 cents. There was a huge chunk out of Honky Cat, so Honky Cat couldn't really play. It was like a divot on a golf course.
In the actual vinyl?
Yeah, like somebody taking a screwdriver to Honky Cat, so you could not play that. I mean, you could, but it skipped in a very strange way. Like it leapt. The needle actually leapt through midway through Honky Cat. Yeah.
Did it always land in the same place in the next song, or did it vary?
No, it was like it took off like a trampoline. And I remember it well because it'd be like, get backward. And just land, sometimes land in Crocodile Rock, sometimes land on Border Song. You don't know what the fuck's going to happen. And that was my, and then I ended up writing a bunch of short stories for my English teacher, John Bowden, at the Eastwood School, that were stories that were based on the songs on Elton John Greatest Hits. Like I wrote a story based on the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road lyrics. So I was a freak from the start. And so that was definitely the first one. I mean, I remember it vividly, obviously. I remember what it looked like, smelled like, it was used. Somebody must have really loved Honky Cat and they just gave it away.
But even then, 25 cents was a pretty good deal. So
I mean, it's amazing.
You can't really complain.
It would probably be worth like $250 now. So
did it ever occur to you that perhaps that person really hated Honky Cat, or it could have been involved in a terrible breakup?
I mean, the violence had been done to Honky Cat. Make no mistake, and so it's very possible. And I don't know why. I mean, actually, it is a weird song, though. Like, I heard it on the radio the other day, and I was like, what is this song? Like, what is it about, actually? So
I've never listened to the lyric, I have to admit. I've heard the song a gazillion times, but I've never paid enough attention.
Well, somebody is addressing the Honky Cat and saying, like, get back to your redneck ways or something like that. So I'm curious about well, it's presumably Bernie Taupin's lyrics. I'm curious about what those lyrics are rooted in. Never crossed my mind to dig deeper.
Perhaps confusion.
Until now. And now I know what I'm going to spend my afternoon doing is going deep. Like my kids will be in the other room watching TV while I try to figure out what Honky Cat is about. So thanks for asking that question. It's been great being on this podcast. See you around.
That is tremendous Gen X parenting right there. But
yes.
Let's get into the food.
I'm a helicopter parent. If we're talking about the helicopters in Apocalypse Now,
So I think you just won the prize for best answer and follow up. The rest of us, Dave was like downright ashamed. I won't even out him here about his first record. Mine was Dave Clark 5's Greatest Hits that I brought from my brother for 25 cents more than you paid. So I don't think I got a very good deal compared to you. But
Yeah. Well, Dave Clark 5, that's interesting. What was your first concert?
why am I hesitating on this? Billy Idol, Rebel Yell Tour.
No. Yeah, that's core. That's core Gen X there. Okay.
Yeah.
That's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, I went by myself, and it was 5 hours from home, and my dad sat outside. He didn't want to come in, and clipped the Congressional Record, which he had a subscription to. So I wasn't that typical a Gen Xer.
I don't know that the words Billy Idol and Congressional Record have ever appeared in the same sentence before. But,
oh, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Yeah. I mean, my first real concert is a source of shame, because I begged my father for my 13th birthday or 12th birthday to take me to see STYX, STYX, STYX. And
Mr. Roboto.
Yeah, at the Long Beach Arena, and I brought a couple friends, and I sat there horrified. Like, I had a core Gen X moment. I was like, what am I doing here? This music is shit. Like, and they were playing like Babe I'm Leaving. It was the Cornerstone tour. And the drums kit is swirling around, there's light show, there's smoke, and somehow the punk rock fan in me that had not yet fully been expressed understood that this was wrong. Like, I understood that this corporate rock thing was not for me. And I actually made us leave, much to my friends were furious. My dad was thrilled. He could come home and have a martini. But then I went home that next day, got all my STYX records, Kansas, all the prog rock stuff, and went to Pooh Bah's record shop in Pasadena and sold it all. I just got rid of it. I got rid of the whole haul and bought some Ramones and Elvis Costello instead, and my life took on a new direction.
That sounds like the first paragraph of a novel right there. Let's get on to the food stuff, which is what we brought you on here to talk about. And we were talking before you joined us about sort of our favorite foods as kids and the difference between that and what we might eat today. So what was a staple in the Gordinier house growing up?
Well, we had the usual, like, Chef Boyardee kind of stuff, the 70s, food from a can. We did a lot of, like, English muffin pizzas sort of situations, like you would toast the English muffin, put some ragu,
there is no shame in that. Yeah.
I have eaten every single thing you've mentioned in the last 48 hours.
Well, I have 7-year-old twins, so have
Noma,
I, actually.
By the way, at Noma, and I flew back over here.
Yeah, well, the Noma English muffin pizzas are incredible, as everyone knows. But I also, my parents, for some families, like, Broadway shows are the thing, and for my parents, restaurants were like the show. And so it's not really an accident I ended up writing about restaurants, because they would actually, I grew up here in Los Angeles. We would read the reviews of Jonathan Gold and Ruth Reichel in the LA Times, later LA Weekly for Jay Gold. And my parents would want to go visit the places that Ruth wrote about. And, like she reviewed Citrus on Melrose here in LA. It's a Michel Richard restaurant. And they like instantly got to work making a reservation to take the family to Citrus. They would respond to criticism, to reviews that way. And in fact, my father was so into exposing me to different kinds of cuisines and everything that he once flew me up to San Francisco, presumably on a business trip. I guess he was, but he wanted to take me to the Mandarin, which is a famous Chinese restaurant in San Francisco owned by Cecilia Chang, whom I believe lived till she was like 101. And she had it was an incredible restaurant, like grand sort of Chinese banquet place. And they had these lettuce cups filled with squab, basically pigeon. And it was that, I mean, this is not Chef Boyardee, I'll be honest, that was sort of one of my first encounters. Many of my encounters with food that sort of took me over the threshold had to do with Chinese food, because Peking duck was the same. Like, the first time I had Peking duck, was like, how is this allowed? This is candy. You know, this is dessert. You have like sweet duck skin and hoisin sauce in a pancake. You know, like this is amazing. So, I mean, Chinese food just kind of opened my eyes to the world, what food could be, you know. And in LA here, you know, there's great Chinese food, Thai food, Mexican food, Korean food, Filipino food, Persian food. I didn't necessarily grow up with this sort of Eurocentric classics that New Yorkers do, which is like Italian and French food. Like it was much more sort of Pacific Rim, multicultural Los Angeles thing that I grew up with. And that was influenced by Ruth and Jay Gold. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I know I've read Ruth's books where she talks about like she, you know, writing, and it may have not been when she was in LA, but when she moved to the New York Times, you know, actually writing about non-European ethnic cuisines and getting a lot of pushback for treating them seriously.
Yeah, it's fascinating, David, because she got, like, people would cancel their subscriptions because she'd give 3 or 4 stars to a Thai restaurant or a sushi bar, which now it seems absurd that anyone would be angry about that, but it basically people were racist about it, you know, and didn't see these as elevated cuisines as French or Italian, which is absurd. I mean, Thai food is the most complex cuisine in the world, you know, as is a lot of Mexican regional cuisines, like Oaxacan cuisine is incredibly complex and beautiful and deep. But yeah, and then Jonathan Gold, you know, he was doing he wrote about music and he wrote about, I guess you would say, street food, street eats, you know, mom and pop shops. And my buddy Rich Seifert and I would scout, you know, would look for his reviews and then go to the places he recommended sort of in tandem with whatever punk band we were going to go see. Like we'd be like, oh, well, we're going to see The Clash at the Hollywood Palladium. And that's not far from Jitlada, that Thai restaurant Jay Gold wrote about. So let's work that in. That's the sort of Gen X perspective I have on restaurants, in a way that my teen transformation in terms of restaurants had to do with going to see a band or going to see some cool indie film, like at the Rialto in Pasadena, and pairing that with a meal, you know, like, so it's like, well,
it's a highly curated youth.
Yeah, it was a curated. It was like, Rich and I were basically the OG food snobs, actually. And even at 15, we'd be curating our lunch experience. Like, well, we're allowed to leave campus today. Should we go to Jurgensen's for the sandwiches, or should we go up the street for burritos? You know, how much time do we have? I don't know. It's it's all of a piece to me. Like the experience of music is always tied to food for me, because I wouldn't.
My middle school lunches were our food decision was, should Jeff Boss and I, could we sneak out by the dumpster and get to McDonald's and back in time to make the next class without being noticed?
Yeah, awesome. We didn't have a McDonald's in my town. We had a very little. Grew up in a little village kind of called San Marino that had one of those no corporate restaurants rules. So, we would have to cross the border. Food. Yeah, so actually you had more interesting options, but we'd have to sort of cross the border into Pasadena to get fast food.
So, that's fascinating.
The curation idea is something you wrote about in a foreword to a book called Snacky Tunes, which I thought you had this great concept that a playlist and a menu are basically the same thing, that you're putting together things that you love and sharing them with people. Can you just sort of spill on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think part of it is that, and I do think this is a kind of classic Gen X trait, is that I'm drawn to autobiography. I'm drawn to what's niche and what's unique and what's unique to a person's personality. So, if I hear Nina Simone or Patti Smith or Cat Power, that's a voice I can recognize instantly. That's distinctive, and that I associate it with that individual's journey, so to speak. And I think the same is true of restaurant menus. Restaurants that I love tend to be expressions of that chef's story. That could be an immigrant story, as in the case of Gitlada or Sap Coffee Shop. It could be Prune in New York City was a classic example. The restaurant was really Gabrielle Hamilton's autobiography expressed through a menu. And it's funny, you catch me at a rare moment where I'm extremely hungover. I don't drink much. I didn't plan well, but I have a dinner series that I run with my friend Nastasia Lopez, and called Fun House. It's a Iggy and the Stooges reference. And it's basically just
Michigan.
I love Iggy. It's basically just an attempt to. We see it as kind of a radical act to get people around the table just to eat and talk. Hopefully, mostly put the phones away. And so it's artists and writers and musicians, filmmakers, chefs. It's all free. It's sponsored actually now by San Pellegrino, so nobody has to pay. They just come and have a party basically. But we've noticed, I've noticed that to your point about menus, like it's all curation. Like how we seat people at the table, whom we want to be, who we want there in the kitchen cooking, and what they're saying about the menu. It's very indie rock in a weird way. It's like we don't want it to feel like some corporate event. We just want it to feel like a gathering of like-minded people. And what's weird too is like we've had 4, every single one, somebody has just grabbed a guitar and started playing music or started reading a poem, or it's Bill Esparza, who's one of the great writers about Mexican cuisine and Central American cuisine. He just like busted out a sax at the second Fun House. Like people didn't even know he was like a professional sax player, and apparently he played with men at work. So wow. Who can it be now? Like the famous sax line?
That's a great sax solo. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not him on the record, but he was the guy on tour playing that apparently for years and years. I didn't know that. So it's still happening for me. You see what I mean? Like this is still how I kind of like curate life.
That, clearly, I want to adopt you as a friend and hang out at your cool stuff. This all sounds great. So I'll let you know when I'm in LA.
Can you do a dinner in Arkansas? I can give you a question.
I'll give you some good Arkansas barbecue and some other things you might not be expecting. But also LA. I want to meet up in LA. This sounds like
please come.
Heck of a time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Yes, this whole podcast was just an elaborate way to get fun events on the schedule. But
it's a ploy.
I love so much how you weave so many parts of the culture through your writing, and certainly when you're making a Cat Power or Talking Heads reference, or Brian Ferry or any of those, all of that warms my heart. And I noticed. I think in Hungry, you talked also about how dishes are, in some ways like songs, or maybe it was the guy, the dessert chef, I think, at Noma who talked about that some. But it seems like there is you're very intentional about drawing those parallels, but they also clearly exist in an important way, that rhythm and melody exist not just in music but in food and in playlists and in the way you experience a restaurant and so forth.
Yeah, well, I think like a lot of restaurants have hit songs basically, particularly if they have a tasting menu. A lot of us who write about food are sort of performatively allergic to tasting menus. We get kind of pious about it, like the Menu movie kind of thing. Like, oh, that's not for me. I don't want to sit through that. But the truth is that a few chefs can pull it off. And it's like a double or triple album back in the day. Like The Clash or Prince could pull it off on Sign of the Times or London Calling or Sandinista. But, You don't necessarily want like a
Not
triple
so
album.
much on Sandinista, let's be honest.
Yeah,
but
about 2/3
there
of
was a lot of
Sandinista.
filler on there.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
filler. Yeah, exactly. You don't necessarily want like a triple album from the Gin Blossoms, So some bands can pull it off, some can't. And it's the same with tasting menus. And there's some that are just like hit after hit. There's some where basically you remember one song, you remember one dish really well. Yeah. And others it's just kind of forgettable. I mean, creative people just kind of I changed my life personally in my teens, so I'm just drawn to them, whether it's chefs or poets or filmmakers or musicians. I grew up very conservative, I grew up in a very old school WASP Republican town, and I think my mom was one of the few registered Democrats in the whole town. And I grew up in the church. I grew up going to 3 or 4 Bible studies a week, and none of which.
Do you still go to 3 or 4 of them?
No, it's about 7 or 8 now.
Okay.
No, I'm grateful actually to the exposure to scripture. To things like the Beatitudes. That certain passages from the Bible are implanted in my mind, almost like passages of Shakespeare. I'm not mad about it actually, because much of it is beautiful as literature almost. But at a certain point,
as literature, and it also provides common points of reference for people that become really useful in life, even if you don't believe in it. It's
Absolutely.
just, it's nice to have some stuff that everybody knows, and it's comparable to what vernacular cuisine too, right? That it's good to know that, pizza has variations, but everybody kind of knows what pizza is.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Bible's kind of like Happy Days, like everyone watched so you could talk about it the next day.
It is kind of like that, yeah.
Yes.
Am I
going to hell now?
No, we're all going to hell.
Who's the Fonz?
Who's the Fonz? Jesus. I mean, I'm here to tell you. He walks in the room and the room is transformed. That's what happened. And then he performs miracles. I mean, the Fonz was always dropping miracles. The guy was he was a magician. But
Jesus never jumped the shark.
Well, some
of his followers did.
yeah, exactly. But I do. Yeah, David. I mean, I carry those passages around, and it's the New Testament, Gospels, and also the Old Testament. My wife is Jewish, and we go to a Seder at her family's house, and I have a familiarity with those stories as well, and can share them with my little guys and talk about them. It's a good thing to know about, regardless of your degree of belief on this, the faith spectrum. Did I block out there, or still there?
Oh, you're here.
Okay, cool. But at a certain point, punk rock intervened, and I started seeing bands, and randomly picked up some books of poetry. Around the same time, I started going to the restaurants that Jonathan Gold was writing about, and I'd go to the Rialto in Pasadena for indie films. That's the same theater that's in The Player, the Robert Altman movie where the screenwriter gets killed.
Okay.
Yeah, it was that's actually the actual theater that I'd go see, European art films at when I was 16. And all of this happened at the same time. It didn't necessarily cure me of evangelical Christianity, but it just provided an alternative way of thinking about the world, shall we say. all at the same time. And it's kind of embarrassing that now I'm 58 and I'm essentially pursuing the same route that I was pursuing at 18. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like, I haven't changed. I've gone through all these things, but I guess I haven't changed that much. I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm interested in music, film, poetry, and food.
Say I had a car salesman the other day that I was making chit chat about the fact that I do this podcast, and he summed up that feeling of our generation that, like he said, you guys were all 30 years old when you were 13, and you're still 30 years old today.
Yeah,
and you're and I think there's a lot in that, actually.
It's very true. It's very true. Yeah, for better or worse. But I don't mind. I find that it's nourishing it's almost like having a pre-digital childhood is a wellspring of
Yeah.
nourishment, like I find that going back to those memories and going back to the source material, films, music, etc., is restorative for me. Like nothing made me so happy as the Criterion Channel. A friend of mine, I know that's the ultimate cliche,
I
but
love it.
oh my God, a friend got me that for my birthday a couple of years ago, got me a
That's a great
subscription. It is really the most thoughtful gift. And I went down, it was such a source of joy after putting the twins in bed, do their homework, shower, get them in bed, and then to sit back and scan through the library of Criterion there and just land on something beautiful like a Fellini film or Kurosawa film. God, we're so lucky to have resources like that. I think Gen Xers we like encyclopedic things. And I know these are all generalizations. When I did a Gen X book, came out in 2008, I got, people slag on you like, these are generalizations. But it's funny how universal they can be among people of the same cohort, you get those nods of understanding.
I started out doing this show with, the sort of jaded view that like, it's a nice gimmick for us to do for a show, but I don't really buy into the whole generations matter thing. And the more we talk about it, the more I actually have kind of drunk the Kool-Aid, if you will.
Yeah.
Hey,
but the sorry, Dave, you had a question.
Well, so on the Criterion Channel, have you happened to see, or perhaps seen in a theater, the Sam Green film called 32 Sounds?
No.
Okay, you absolutely must watch it. And Sam, I'm nostalgic about home. Sam his mother and my mother were best friends in East Lansing, where I grew up. He has become a really interesting experimental filmmaker. He's also a list guy, and 32 Sounds is hard to explain, but it's you watch it with headphones actually, because there's a lot of sound things that happen in it, and it's also a musical reference to Glenn Gould, 32 songs, and so but Sam's next. Well, wait, I want to be. Sam has the Guinness Book of World Records is a big thing for Sam, which is the ultimate list for our generation.
As it should be for everyone. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so anyway, keep an eye on him. And he does live film performances with bands like Yola Tango and members of Fugazi. So Sam is a person to know about, and he does just the most amazing things. We'll have him on here at some point, hopefully.
Oh, that's amazing. Thanks for that tip, Dave.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Jeff, before we let you get back to your hangover and the rest of your day, speaking of encyclopedic things, we came up with a little game for you that we'd like you to play here at the end, which is we're going to give you a few different meals here, and we'd like you to provide the perfect Gen X musical accompaniment for each one.
Off the top of my head?
Off the top of your head, we decided that was better than letting you prep. And so the first one is going to be whatever it is that one eats at Noma.
I think that people would think that what you should be listening to at Noma is some sort of Philip Glass, Koyaanisqatsi type thing. Like nature surging past
lots of space in the music. Yeah.
Yeah. If you saw in Hungry, and it's shocking to me how many people don't know that I did this, but every chapter is named after a Talking Heads song. But that's the Gen X. I'm like, people don't know that Burning Down the House is a Talking Heads reference, or Houses in Motion. I guess I've had a lot of people say that book is really obscure. I was like, oh, great. Okay. You're welcome. But for me, it would be, it would probably be like Remain in Light by Talking Heads. Like, and it's particularly all those kind of Afrobeat grooves like The Great Curve and Born Under Punches.
Zimbra, yeah.
Zimbra, so good.
Yeah. An old school steakhouse dinner. Sorry.
An old steakhouse? Songs for Swinging Lovers by Frank Sinatra, particularly. I thought about you, and you make me feel so young. You make me feel that spring has sprung. That's the best Sinatra to me. Before he went down the tubes because of, well, he didn't go to, I mean, he's still good, but Ava Gardner broke his heart. You know, in the wee small hours of the morning would be at the bar at the steakhouse after, you know, your wife has stomped out.
Would it still be Frank if it was Peter Luger?
Yeah, I think so. I think Frank would be good. I mean, everybody loves Frank. Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, I have a deep connection to Frank Sinatra. I don't know why, but I just think he occupies it's a powerful place in American cultural history.
Okay, David had sashimi, but I want to ask you about Bibimbap.
Oh, yeah. What about Bibimbap?
What's your musical
what's the song?
accompaniment?
You know, I love when you hit those, maybe like Parliament Funkadelic, like something really, or Earth, Wind, and Fire, something really groovy and layered. Bibimbap, I think of all the layers and the fact that you hit these patches of funk, you know, like the gochujang. I mean, I love Korean food. So my kids even have a book about bibimbap. I got a children's book about bibimbap. They just love saying it too. You know, bibimbap is fun to say. And their best buddy Miles here in the neighborhood is actually Korean. His parents are Korean, and so they
do
will
they
go
get
to
real homemade bibimbap at their?
Miles's family has had us over for Korean barbecue in the backyard, which I've had some extraordinary meals here in Los Angeles, but that was the best. I mean, they made seafood pancakes from scratch. They had a grill that they'd actually shipped from Korea, special grill. Oh my gosh. It was extraordinary. Yeah. So.
Yum.
Yeah.
Right. That is a Korean barbecue is something that had been a family favorite of ours when we lived in suburban Maryland, where there's a big Korean population. And, and we came here to Pittsburgh, and it doesn't exist here.
Yeah, there's hardly any in Little Rock.
And it has been a disappointment to us all. To wrap it up, a food that we had like an hour-long discussion about yesterday, sort of out of nowhere, that we both love, a tuna melt and fries.
Oh, wow. Oh, I love a tuna melt. Actually, there's two places very close to my house, John O'Groats, which is sort of an old school LA diner on Pico, and also on Pico, the Apple Pan, which is a classic West Side burger place. Both have tuna melts. The thing about tuna melts is I'm instantly thinking of the 70s and frankly, my mom making, a nice after school snack or weekend lunch for us. So probably we're listening to Wings, right? Paul McCartney and Wings. Yes.
All right.
Like, and maybe Wings at it. Paul McCartney is most cheesy, like Let 'Em In or Silly Love Songs or something really kind of inexcusably cheesy and pop, but that you're kind of connected to just because, what's the one that goes like, it's like Admiral Halsey or something. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm trying to,
butter pie. I mean, like probably that. Like, and then he goes like, hands across the water. I'm hearing Wings with the tuna melt. I can't help myself.
As you were saying that, I was like, I'm hearing Generals and Majors. XTC.
Oh, wow. I love XTC.
Actually, which is very, it's a very similar sound to that Wings song that we can't remember the name of.
I think it's Uncle Albert Admiral Halsey or something, like some weird post Abbey Road, British parlor pop kind of name like that. Lists, it's funny. I was thinking about the lists, and I have talked to a lot of Gen Xers over the years whose essentially their first erotic experience had to do with the Book of Lists. Now, I don't know if you remember the Book of Lists, but it was just a list. I
remember the Book of Lists, and I remember the lists in question, to be honest. Yes.
It was a list of the most popular sexual positions, right? There were no pictures or anything, but they described the positions in great detail. And it was at my grandma's house in New Jersey, and I remember not being much older than my twins here, and maybe like third grade reading that, like, look, and I don't know that it was appropriate for a kid to be reading it, but I have had this conversation with many extras over the years. Like, dude, book of lists, like it still haunts me. Like,
Yeah. I remember it vividly. All I'm willing to say at this point. But
Hey, before we lose you, Jeff, I got to ask one thing.
Sure.
Hungry came out 3 years before The Bear, and yet there's some scenes in The Bear that remind me of Hungry, and I wondered if you could comment on that.
Well, yeah. Well, Chris Storer, who created The Bear, has told me he's a fan of the book. The book actually appears in a bookshelf in one of the episodes.
Oh, that's a nice.
Which is, I mean, you can't even. It's like split second. But the character of Marcus in The Bear, who's the pastry chef, is overtly modeled on Malcolm Livingston, who's in Hungry. That Chris actually admitted that to me in a Q&A for Esquire. He said, "Yeah, I mean that's how we created Marcus." Hey, it's fiction. They're creating fiction based on source material, and I'm honored that they refer to it anyway. The whole second season, when Marcus goes to Copenhagen and lives there, is yeah, it's Hungry. It's weird, man, because when that came out, it was well received. It got good reviews. It did not tear down the house in terms of sales. It sold respectably, I guess you would say, respectfully. It sold with respect. I don't know. But I have 3 times in the last week, I'm not making this up. I went to Destroyer, which is a kind of new Nordic restaurant here in Culver City around the corner. I went on a walk and I dropped in for a coffee, and the young guy working there said, "Oh, wait, are you Jeff Gordinier? Did you write Hungry?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Dude, that book changed my life. I've read it 2-3 times."
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, and he was like 23, and I'm guessing maybe 25. I've noticed with 3 different 20-something people over the last week, 1 in New York, 2 here in LA, have told me that they were basically working in hospitality because of that book. I apologize to their parents. But
at least they didn't become journalists, Jeff.
Yeah, I know exactly. They can make even less money than. But it's so gratifying to hear that a younger generation is finding the book, even if they're finding it in the used book bin somewhere, but they're picking it up and reading it. It's short. You can read it fast. And it still has a life. The cool thing about books is that they can have a life 10, 20, 50 years later if people happen to be inspired by them, and that's been the case in my life. I found books. I just read Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird, this book on writing I should have read 30 years ago. Yeah. My writing would have been a lot better. And it kind of changed how I approach writing now at 58, so that was just really nice to hear that people find it. And maybe it's, to answer your question, and maybe it's a byproduct of The Bear in a strange way, that they come to hearing about Noma through The Bear, so that Hungry comes first is one of the many rivers of source material. Yeah, I don't know.
David's talked a lot about, an experience I feel sure you did and I did too, but he's talked on past episodes about like going to see REM, and then you read about them or whatever band you're into, and you learn all the backstory on them, and you hear their influences, and you're like, oh, they liked, the New York Dolls or whoever it was, and then you want to look up the Dolls, and that's probably the wrong reference. David's much more REM savvy than I.
No, the Velvet Underground probably, which
the Underground, that would also be a pathway.
Yeah, but that's kind of rock and roll, Jeff. Like your book is like it's music again, just like we've been talking about.
And,
it's just floating around.
And now you're going to get the stupid Gen X audience. So
it's going to blow up now. It's going to be a bestseller for a second time. Hey, I gotta
always be closing. Always be selling. I once talked to Tony Bourdain. I interviewed him many times for details for the New York Times, etc. And I was like, dude, I was like teasing him a little bit. Aren't you a little overexposed? And, you seem to be everywhere. You're doing a comic book, you're doing cookbooks, you're this show and that show. And he was like, no, I'll always be selling, man. You never stop promoting. There's no end to it. And I was like, okay.
Well, we're here. We appreciate your taking this time. I have one last question. I know we've gone long, but this is so much fun. And
good.
David warned me that we're going to have a ton of fun talking to you. Okay, do you ever sit down to a really high-end meal and think to yourself, I'd really rather have a burger right now?
Oh,
or fill
absolutely.
In the guilty pleasure.
Absolutely. I can think of specific examples. There was one place in Chicago, my wife and I sat down, and it was not a Linea, by the way, which I have had. It's tremendous. It may not be for everybody, but it is a tremendous expression of art. It was a sort of run-of-the-mill tasting menu place, and 3 dishes in, Dave, my wife and I was like, can I pretend I'm going to say I'm sick. I'm going to say I have a cold or something. Like, I can't do this. I got to get out of here. I want to go get, like an Italian beef sandwich. This is fucking driving me crazy. I grew up here in LA mostly with street food, taco trucks and Thai noodle shops and stuff. And I am not drawn to fine dining per se. Like, I don't consider that the opulent ultra thing. Like, that is one mode of cooking. It is not the best mode. It is just one mode of expression, similar to prog rock or something that has a lot of wizard capes and endless keyboard solos. And sometimes it works, but there's one restaurant here in LA called Vespertine. It is much mocked among the sort of foodwazi, right? And it basically, they built a building for Vespertine that's like a spaceship, and there's many layers to it. And when it first opened, the dishes served were almost like space food, like little blue globules that you would get on one of Elon Musk's, trips to Mars kind of thing. And so they were sort of, because of my role with Esquire and other publications, they were begging me to come in and experience Vespertine. I could actually walk to it. And Jordan Kahn, the chef, he's got kind of a Trent Reznor situation going on with the hair and stuff. And I was like, this is going to your question. This is going to be the tasting menu, nightmare, right? And it's all that pretension that we wince at or kind of clench at. And let me tell you, I was exquisite. I was completely carried away. It turned out to be a complete surprise. Everything was delicious and beautiful and expressed sort of the landscape and the history of California. They had a real tongue-in-cheek approach to the spaceship element. Like, they were funny about it, and like they were in on the joke. And at one point, Jordan came up to our table and he said, you move from table to table till you move throughout the building, which is actually kind of lovely because you move you walk around. And he came up to one of the tables and said, this next dish was inspired by an ayahuasca trip in Latin America with a shaman. And I was like, oh boy, we live in California now. Here we go. But it blew my mind. It was incredible. So I'm open to surprises, and I'm open to the fact that some people are artists. They truly are artists, and this is how they express themselves. They're just kind of beautiful weirdos. And I love that. That's the Gen Xer in me. Like, that, go for it. Do it. If it works, go for it. It's when it's kind of middling and tedious and sort of not inspired, when they're almost not shooting the moon enough, that's when a tasting menu sucks. Right. Then you're just like, I've seen this dish on Instagram a million different places. This is not original. You got the swooshes and the dots and the slicing. I've seen this. This is not interesting, Then I do just want to go to Pine Burger or Apple Pan and get a burger. And often do.
Outstanding.
There you go. Well, that seems like a great place to leave it. And Jeff, thank you again. Really.
Thanks so much, guys. It was fun.
Who's teaming up with a good balanced breakfast?
Teaming up with Mr. T cereal. It's getting on the team that knows how cool breakfast can be. You get a crispy corn taste with a touch of brown sugar. Teaming up with Mr. T.
It's cool.
Teaming up with Mr. T. Golden sweet crispy teas. One bite and you're gonna be eating with a team that's teaming up with Mr. T.
It's cool.
Talk with Mr. T.
Okay, we are back, and that was fantastic. And it's time to remind you again to please, if you like what we are doing here, to smash that like button, subscribe.
And I'm begging you, please do it. Otherwise, Dave's going to start talking about skywriting again.
Yes, you may not be able to stop me. Well, that was a great discussion. Before we go into our next one, let's talk about one last thing. What is your favorite food-related movie scene?
That's a good question, Dave. Thank you for having the gumption to ask that. And
You did it.
For me, for me, it is absolutely Big Night, which is a great food movie all the way through. For those who don't know it, it's the story of two Italian immigrant brothers in New Jersey in the 1950s opening a restaurant where they're trying to actually be, a little bit more Italian, a little bit fancier than what people have come to expect from an Italian restaurant. It's not going well, and they're both having an affair with the same woman, and things go awry. And there's a bunch of great scenes. There's this great set piece at the end where they've had this big fight, and the restaurant is going to close, and everything's terrible. And it's morning, and they come back into the restaurant kitchen, and Stanley Tucci makes scrambled eggs, and the two of them sit there and eat them, and there's no dialogue. It's like 4 or 5 minutes of just making and eating scrambled eggs, and it just tears at every heartstring that you have about like connecting food with love and food with family, and it's perfect.
That's something. That is a great scene. I have seen that movie. I do love it, and that is perfection right there.
What about for you, Dave?
I'm a little torn on it. Part of me wants to say, although it's really not about the food, I love the final scene of The Sopranos and how unresolved and mysterious it sort of is, and of course it takes place in a diner. So that's sort of a food scene, but I guess I'll go more traditional and I'll say Babette's Feast when the meal is served and it's transformative to everyone. And that has a special place in my heart also because as a teenager, I got one of the coolest jobs a teenager could get, which was the publicist for my local art house movie theater. And I was a very ambitious little teen publicist, and so I got a local restaurant. We had Babette's Feast playing that summer, and I got a very ambitious local chef and restaurant to recreate Babette's Feast as a promotion for the film, and that contributed to its success. But really, it was just a lot of yumminess.
So
and
we're just all about Danish food today, and. I think the Danish Tourism Board should probably fly us over to Copenhagen as a result. But,
yes, that sounds like an excellent idea. Let's go ahead with that. Okay.
All right, but now, Dave, it's time for Wormholes, which is our segment for coming up with some rationale for just talking about something that we want to talk about. I don't know that we need a rationale, but we came up with a rationale. And this time, for the first time here on episode 11, the Wormholes segment will be preceded by the Wormholes theme song. Who composed it, Dave?
Well, that is composed by my amazing pal, MC Sucka DJ Daniel Clark and the Supermassive Posse, coming to us from suburban Philadelphia by way of East Lansing back in the day. And it is 4 seconds of punk rock glory. Here it is.
All right.
Okay.
So the only problem is, I have to say, Dave, when we were consulting with them on producing that, we were very focused on keeping it short. But now, like, we only get 4 seconds every other week. That doesn't seem like enough. I want to hear it again.
Okay, here it is. Okay, that's outstanding. All right. Shall I go ahead with my wormhole now?
Please do.
Okay, so this seems, I think, quite appropriate. First, shout out to my friends Rhonda and Richard McBain, who introduced me to this gloriousness. And clearly, I'm not the first to discover this thing they shared with me, which is called the Country Life Vlog on YouTube. Now, that sounds like something that I might find kind of pukey, like Western style, wood studded homes.
What do you have against rural America, Dave? What you're just an elitist big city Little Rock snob.
I hate cliches, David. There's so many cliches in the what I'm thinking of is Yellowstone. Like the house that they live in Yellowstone is the house that you see in so many rural rich people who made it kind of homes, which is big beams and like faux log cabins and like deer deer on the wall and hunting. I can't even use the right terms of art. I'm so not that guy. But anyway, that's what Country Life Vlog sounds like to me, and that's not what this vlog is at all. It is a channel on YouTube of a family very focused on the mother and father that live in rural Azerbaijan. And it is kind of a cooking.
So less Kevin Costner, more Borat.
I think it would pain them to be compared to Borat. And I love this thing, so I want to give it nothing but love. So no, it's not Borat. It's not Kevin Costner. It is this family, the Ramakanov family. And well, first let me describe it a little bit. I'm going to play a little bit and here. So what you see is this incredibly beautiful scenery of this farm and this place in the countryside of Azerbaijan. And then the husband is out farming basically and gathering stuff and then bringing it back up to the house. And his wife is cooking these unreal meals in just like, it's mind blowing. And this thing is getting 2 million views per video every week. Like it is a runaway hit on YouTube for good reason, because it's almost like, it's like YouTube Zen. You just throw it up on the screen and there's no dialogue. It's all just nature sounds and this gorgeous farm. And it was all started by a chef. Crazily enough, their son is a chef, and his name is Amir Aslan. The mother is Aziza. And in 2019, he started doing some videos. And then when he lost his job during COVID at a restaurant where he was a chef, he went full time doing these videos. And they're like a Kiarostami movie, which is an Iranian filmmaker whose scenes are just beautiful and languid and incredible. This guy, trained as a chef, is a natural filmmaker, and it's just something to behold and very mellow.
I will check that out. It sounds fascinating. Mine is much less elevated than that, I think, my wormhole for today. But I just, picked up on something that I have fixated on a little bit over many years, which is words that you use that turn out to be named after a person that you unexpectedly wouldn't expect. And I got on this kick of thinking about it again because I'd read an article somewhere about a boycott that referenced that the first boycott was against an English landowner in Ireland named Charles Cunningham Boycott in the 19th century. Of course, that leads you to thinking about the late lamented Price Club, which was not named after being a place where you can buy things for a low price, but was named after its founder, Saul Price. The great Sheetz chain of convenience stores here in Western Pennsylvania and the environments, which is named after the Sheetz family of Altoona. But the two that I stumbled upon this week that I think are just great. One, to keep us on the food theme, is German chocolate cake, which does not come from Germany, although it's kind of similar
like French
to German
fries
pastries.
Don't come from France.
Yeah. It was the original recipe came from an English American chocolate maker named Samuel German, and the first recipe book in which it appeared, it referred to it as German's '*S chocolate cake. But of course, everybody shortened it to that. And then the one that I absolutely love is a very New York centric one, but it's the Outerbridge Crossing, which for those who are not familiar is a bridge connecting Staten Island and New Jersey that I always assumed was named that because it's like the outer crossing over New York Harbor. It's the one before you kind of get to the ocean or to the Long Island Sound or whichever it is there. I can't picture the map at the moment. It is actually named after Eugenius Harvey Outerbridge, who was the chairman of the Port of New York at the time of its construction. So maybe someday we'll be sitting here and somebody will be talking about the Anderson microphone or something like that. And they'll be able to say, there's this guy named Dave Anderson.
Maybe that is that's outstanding. I like that. You made me think of a really well-named bridge here in Little Rock called the Big Dam Bridge.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and it is spelled DAM because it's at a dam.
Did they think about it when they named it that people were gonna just call it that?
No, that's what they named it. They've named it the Big Dam Bridge. That is its official name, and clearly, like, that couldn't have gone through a city-related process without someone being a little concerned about it sounding like they had really named it a swear word. But it's not, because it's after a dam, D-A-M. But I got to say, it's one of the things that makes me really appreciate Little Rock, that we had a sense of humor and went ahead with that, because that wouldn't always happen in many towns.
It is pretty good, and I actually think Mr. Outerbridge probably would not have approved of it back in the early 20th century. But
yeah, I heard he's a real stuffed shirt.
There you go. All right.
All right. Well, that's great, David. That brings us to the end of our show, but we have an exciting announcement.
Yes. So starting with the next episode that we'll be releasing in 2 weeks, we're going to start a series of episodes where it's just going to be us, the Daves, two guys here. For the entire episode, we're going to size up and bicker about everything and anything from a particular year of our lives. We're going to start in our childhoods in 1976, and we're just going to move forward from there. And those will run and should be coming out soon, and you are going to love them like Dave loved chocolate chip cookies as a child.
I love chocolate chip cookies as an adult too. And yes, it will be lots of fun. And those episodes will alternate with our exciting guest-centric shows, like our super cool upcoming one featuring Bertus Downs, who was a key part of the REM family, REM the band, as the band's lawyer.
Did you say REM, Dave?
I did say REM, and Bertus will have a lot to say about the music business, that amazing band, who you are clearly fan numero uno on this show, but I am too, and how they found success without compromising their ideals. And one thing that helps is dominating the charts. That always helps.
I can't wait.
Yes, I think that's a wrap, David.
I think you're right, Dave.
All right. Well, Stupid Gen X Tricks is produced by the Daves. A tummy buster sized thank you to MC Sucka DJ Daniel Clark and the Supermassive Posse, creating that epic wormhole theme. Our show theme is by Amanda Bassi, and our art is by TJ McCoy. And thank you to Jeff and everyone else.
Thank you all for watching.
Good night and good luck.